Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new here, my name is Miranda and I am the Enchantress of Avalon. So a brief side note before I get into the video, I am recovering from a cold currently, so if my voice sounds off, that is why. So today's video is going to be on nymphs. Super fun topic, right? They are the playful, fun-loving fairies of Greco-Roman mythology. And they aren't one type of fae being, they are an entire series of different fae beings, essentially living embodiments of different elements. So, in that, we have fairies, nymphs, that are nymphs of the woodland, nymphs of trees, nymphs of water. There's actually two types of water nymphs. And in Teresa Mori's The Fairy Bible, she goes over both types. And this is just a beautifully illustrated book, which makes it a great starter for those who are new to studying fairy lore. The naiads, which are water nymphs, the spirits of streams, fountains, and wells. And nereids, which are water nymphs of the ocean. So basically, you have freshwater and saltwater nymphs, and yeah, they do have slightly different temperaments and are involved in mythology in slightly different ways. But they're still nymphs. We have this image of nymphs being these enchanted beings who are protectors of nature, and they are that. We also have a vision of them as very, very sexy and sexually charged fairy women. They are that as well. In fact, the word nymphomaniac literally comes from nymphs, as does the phrase nymphette, which is famously used by Vladimir Nabokov in his novel Lolita. That is how he describes, or that is Humbert Humbert narrating. The narrator and protagonist of the book describes Lolita as a nymphette. So this idea of youthful and innocent, yet also very sexy, has become entwined with our vision of nymphs. But they also always have had that sexy yet innocent thing going on, because they are nature made manifest. They are these fun-loving fae women, and woodland nymphs are known to dance around in the woods, as would be naiads, who are, again, the ones associated with sacred places and sacred streams and fountains and wells. They would, of course, exist in the woodland where sacred streams are located. So this whole idea of them dancing and playing with their sisters, the other nymphs, and with satyrs who would play music, and they were kind of like these figures of masculine energy to balance the feminine energy of the nymphs. They were very much like masculine rooted nature, whereas nymphs were much more the feminine, receptive energy of nature and the living embodiment of the natural sources. Nymphs are associated with several deities, just so many deities in the Greek world. Of course, they're associated with goddesses. Aphrodite, Persephone, Artemis all had nymph handmaidens, all different types of nymphs that would flock to help these goddesses in their day-to-day lives. And also, we have stories of nymphs being very integral to important events in Greek myth. For instance, after Rhea saved Zeus from Kronos, his father, swallowing him whole by giving Kronos a stone wrapped in a blanket instead, she took her baby son to a group of nymphs to be raised. So Zeus was raised by nymphs. And if we think about the nymphs and their sexuality, maybe it kind of makes sense that Zeus was such an obsessive ladies' man. I mean, his libido was just off the charts. Maybe it was started with that. Or maybe he inherited it from his father and his grandfather. If we read the myths, that could be possible too. But anyway, we have this whole idea of them being so integral to this really important part of mythology. Nymphs are also married off to really important figures in Greek mythology, that is, important gods. Off the top of my head, Helios, he was married, who was the living embodiment of the sun, was married to a sea nymph, and their daughter, one of them, was the great witch Circe. Yeah. The Circe, as in huge plot point in the Odyssey. Circe turns a bunch of people into swine because they were behaving badly. I love Circe. She's incredible. The Madeline Miller book, Circe, also really great. Highly recommend. I believe I have a review of it on my blog. I will link it in the description box below. Anyway, Circe's mother was, in fact, a nymph. And let's go to the next generation, because, again, Helios would have been a Titan. Let's go to the Olympians. Poseidon was married to a nymph. His wife and queen of the sea, Amphitrite, was a Nereid, a sea nymph. She was a very important one, a very powerful one, but she was a nymph. And we just have this happening over and over again. There's even that story of Hades and Mint or Minth. She's referred to both ways. I'm not really sure what the original Greek pronunciation would be. Having this affair, or at least a flirtation, that made Persephone very jealous. It's, again, mythology evolves over time, so who knows what the original telling was. But there are tellings where it's this flirtation, or Minth is coming on to him, and Persephone ends that very quickly. There are tellings, I believe, where it happened before he and Persephone ever married. And that's certainly in these books. Well, it's a webcomic that got novelized, Lore Olympus. Rachel Smythe uses an idea of Minth and Hades having been in a relationship before he met Persephone, and meeting Persephone ending that relationship. But I don't remember if that's drawn from actual myth, or if she decided to take Minth, who Persephone did not like in actual variations of the myth, because of her having a thing for Hades, and just setting that before they got together. I'm not positive. I don't know if I've ever read a version of the myths where that was the case, but it certainly is the case in Lore Olympus, and I do highly recommend reading it, whether you read it on the web or buying it. It's so beautiful to buy those comics as the hardcover sets. They're so beautiful, and they come with bonus chapters if you buy the hardcover set. Anyway, what else on nymphs? Yes, Minth was a nymph, but she was not my most liked nymph. Let's see. Okay, so the idealization of nymphs is of these fun-loving, free-spirited fairy women. And again, that sisterhood energy. I always think of nymphs as having this very sisterly energy because they're always with other nymphs. They're in groups. They're also often handmaidens of goddesses. Yes, they sometimes get elevated and marry gods themselves, and that puts them on a different level. But a lot of them just spend time with their sisterhood of other nymphs, and it's this idea of women being very associated with nature, and also women supporting other women, which the modern world has unfortunately lost a lot of that, as we're often pitted against each other and compare ourselves to one another in not so great lights. I kind of wish we could return to that time of sisterhood and embracing each other as sisters, like the nymphs would. And I also associate them a lot with this time of year, the in-bulk time where we're having not quite winter, not quite spring. So you're not really hibernating anymore, but you're not ready yet to come out into the open. But what you might be ready to do is kind of just bond with your closest loved ones and bond with people you consider sisters, whether you have actual sisters or not. What and other things I have to note with nymphs is they are associated with the Greek god Pan, as they are associated with satyrs, and Pan is associated with satyrs, and they are also associated with Dionysus as the god of wine, ecstasy, and revelry. He liked to party, just like nymphs like to party. So, other than his maenads, which were his followers, who often went really crazy, he had a lot of nymphs surrounding him. And nymphs and maenads aren't mutually exclusive. I'm sure you could have been a nymph that also became a maenad, which was a very devout follower of the god Dionysus. And I'm sure that there's this very blurry line between the two. But maenads have a very specific, like, really, really wild energy to them. And they do have a fae-like energy as well, even if they're not necessarily considered technically fairies. They do have that wild energy of the woodland that you would associate with nymphs and that you would associate with fairies in general. So, again, blurred lines. It's ancient myth. There's a lot of blurred lines in ancient myth, after all. And the last thing I want to mention is, as a gigantic fan of the original Charmed, the 1998 version, I have to say that I think the way they portrayed the nymphs in the season 5 Nymphs Just Want to Have Fun episode of Charmed was pretty on point for how nymphs are portrayed in actual myth. They seem frivolous at the outset, and certainly the sisters kind of see them as frivolous, but as they get to know them, they realize that although they have this very childlike wonder and this free-spirited nature and just wanting to kind of be free and out in the woods and doing what they want to do, communing with nature and find their satyr and be with their sisters, it's not just that free-spiritedness, but it's this genuine desire to protect and nurture the world around them and to make sure that nature is thriving. And that is ultimately what nymphs want. They want community around them of sisters, of other nymphs, and they want to make sure that the world is thriving and beautiful. We can't fault them for that, can we? So I do hope you've enjoyed this short video about nymphs and how much I just really love them. If you have enjoyed it, please like, comment, subscribe. Check out my blog, whiteroseofavalon.life, for more content. I do post every single day on there. And on Wednesday, Love Week starts, which is my annual celebration of all things romantic. And this year I have a more specific theme. It will be announced tomorrow on my blog. And yeah, you could check it out and have some fun reveling in all the romance up through Valentine's Day. So have a very fabulous Monday, and I will see you again on Friday. Bye now.